Kwame Nkrumah believed Africa's future would never be secure if its nations remained divided. To millions, he was a visionary. To his enemies, he was dangerous. And to this day, many still wonder what Africa might have become if his dream had survived. Before he became one of the most influential leaders in African history, Kwame Nkrumah was a young student from the British colony known as the Gold Coast. Like many Africans living under colonial rule, he watched as foreign powers controlled his country's resources, economy, and future. But unlike most people, Nkrumah believed independence was only the first step. True freedom, he argued, would come when Africans controlled their own destiny. Determined to learn, he traveled abroad and spent years studying in the United States and Britain. There, he encountered ideas that would shape the rest of his life. He studied politics, history, revolutionary movements, and he became convinced that colonialism was not just a problem in one country. It was a problem facing an entire continent. When he returned to the Gold Coast, he found a growing independence movement. People were tired of foreign rule. Workers organized strikes. Students demanded change. Nationalist leaders called for self-government. Nkrumah quickly became one of the movement's most powerful voices. His speeches electrified crowds. He spoke of freedom not as a distant possibility, but as an urgent necessity. Thousands followed him. Colonial authorities became alarmed. Eventually, he was arrested and imprisoned. But prison only increased his popularity. While behind bars, he won an election. The people had made their choice. The British could delay independence, but they could no longer stop it. In 1957, history was made. The Gold Coast became Ghana, the first sub-Saharan African colony to gain independence in the modern era. Crowds celebrated across the country. For many Africans watching from other colonies, Ghana's victory felt like their own. And standing at the center of it all was Kwame Nkrumah. But Nkrumah's ambitions stretched far beyond Ghana. He dreamed of a united Africa, a continent capable of standing alongside the world's greatest powers. He warned that political independence meant little if African nations remained economically dependent on foreign interests. Again and again, he called for unity. Some leaders agreed. Others feared losing their own power. As years passed, disagreements grew. While Nkrumah continued pushing for continental cooperation, many governments preferred national interests. His greatest dream began slipping away. At home, problems were also emerging. Large development projects required enormous spending. Economic difficulties increased. Political opposition grew stronger. Critics accused Nkrumah of concentrating too much power around himself. Supporters argued he was trying to protect Ghana from instability and foreign interference. The debate became increasingly bitter. Then came February 1966. Nkrumah was on an international trip when the unthinkable happened. A military coup overthrew his government. The man who had led Ghana to independence was suddenly removed from power. He never returned as leader. For many Africans, the news was devastating. One of the continent's most famous freedom fighters had fallen. Nkrumah spent the remainder of his life in exile, but he never abandoned his vision. Even after losing power, he continued writing and speaking about African unity. He remained convinced that a divided Africa would struggle against foreign influence and economic dependence. In 1972, Kwame Nkrumah died far from the presidency he once held, but his ideas did not die with him. Today, he is remembered as one of the founding fathers of modern Africa. Some see him as a visionary who was decades ahead of his time. Others point to mistakes made during his years in power. Yet few can deny his impact. He helped inspire independence movements across an entire continent. He challenged colonial rule when many believed it could never end. And he dared to imagine something few leaders were willing to imagine, not just a free Ghana, but a united Africa. Perhaps that is why his story still matters today. Because the question Nkrumah asked generations ago remains unanswered. What could Africa achieve if it truly stood together? Subscribe to HHC for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.